Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and today I'm going to be sharing one of my favorite side dishes. This is braised red cabbage and apples. So let's get started making this. This dish is really easy to make and it makes a great side for pork, chicken, and with the upcoming holidays it'd be a great side dish for turkey or ham. So I've got a yellow onion here. I'm going to take half of this yellow onion and I'm going to go ahead and slice this up. All right, so I've got my onion cut in half and I'm going to go ahead and take the root end off of it. And I'm going to take this outside skin off. All right, with this I'm just going to cut it lengthwise here and to even pieces all the way around. That we will get an even cook on that when we cook it. So we'll just start on one end of it. And remember, when you get halfway you can flip it on its side and continue cutting. And that way you don't have to try to balance that out as you're cutting that up. All right, now that I've got my onion cut up now, we'll set that to the side. And we'll get started. I've got a Granny Smith apple here. You want some type of an apple that's going to be firm when you cook it, because if you use like a Red Delicious or a Golden Delicious, when you cook those, that might fall apart. We don't want that. So the Granny Smith or a Fuji or a Gala will be a little bit more on the crisper side than those other ones I mentioned earlier. So whatever apple you like, I'm using a Granny Smith today. And I'm just going to go ahead and core this out. I've given it a good wash. Now that I've got my apple cored, I'm going to go ahead and give this a peel. All right, now that I've got my apple peeled and cored, I'm going to go ahead and cut this into quarters. And if there's any of that core that I missed in there, we'll cut that out. And with our apples, we want uniform pieces on those so that this cooks evenly. So I'm going to kind of cut them all in the same kind of shape here as I did my onions. That way everything will cook evenly when it cooks. All right, now that I've got my apples sliced up, you can see what those look like there. I'm going to put that in this bowl. And I'm going to put just a little bit of lemon juice on my apples. That way they won't be turning brown and it won't affect the flavor at all on it. So just give it a little squeeze and get that lemon juice on all the outside pieces and you'll be fine. If you're cooking this as you go, you won't have to do that step. You can go ahead and have your pot ready to go and have your onions and your apples ready to go here. But I'm preparing everything for this video, so I'm using this step now. Now for my last item that I've got here, I've got a red cabbage, and I did make some coleslaw earlier with this red cabbage, and if you haven't seen my video on how to make my coleslaw, I'll put that link in that description box. That way you can go check out that video and see how it is. It's a little bit of a different take on your typical coleslaw. It is made with a vinegar base instead of a mayonnaise base on that. So check out that video if you haven't seen it. So I've got a fairly good size red cabbage here, and I've got about 3/4 of it. You can definitely use half of this if you want to, if you've got a fairly good size one. If you've got a small one, you can use the whole cabbage. If you're feeding a lot more than I'm going to be feeding today for 2 or 3 servings out of this, then definitely you can double the recipe up, make it bigger. So with our cabbage, same thing we want to do when we're doing anything is you want to kind of cut it into quarters, and we want to take out that core that's inside of there. So you just want to take your knife and just kind of run it down the side of it there to take out that core, because we don't want that into our braised cabbage and apples here. So now that we've got the core removed out of that, you can cut these in any kind of shapes you want to. If you want to use your food processor with that attachment that you use when you're making coleslaw, you can definitely use that. I'm going to be making mine all about the same sizes today. What you want to do is whatever size you decide to make it on, cut your cabbage all in the same size shapes. That way they cook evenly. So mine is about 1/2 inch on that. All right, now that we've got all our vegetables prepped, I'm going to go ahead and get set up with my little stove here, and we'll come back and we'll show you how this goes together. I am back and I'm ready to go. I've got my Dutch oven here warming up, and I've got 2 tablespoons of butter that I'm going to add to that. And I'm going to kind of give that a stir around in the bottom till that gets melted. If you want to make this vegan, you can add 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, or you can add 2 tablespoons of your favorite vegan margarine or butter. So now that we've got that melted, I'm going to go ahead and add in my onions now, and I'm going to add in my apples. All right, now that I've got my onions and my apples in, I'm going to go ahead and cook this for about 6 minutes. We want this to kind of soften up just a little bit. I've got this on medium, and I'm just going to cook these, like I said, for about 6 minutes until everything softens up. We've got some nice fond on the bottom of our pot here. That's going to make some great seasoning and flavors to our apples and cabbage when we get that on there. And we will deglaze that when we put a little bit of water in it later. All right, this is coming along nicely here. You can see how everything is sweating down on that. My onions are cooking pretty good. and my apples are softening up a little bit. I can definitely tell they've changed a little bit of color. So I'm gonna let these cook a couple more minutes, and then we'll be ready to move on to our next step. All right, I am back and everything is looking nice and soft here. So this is about where I want this. So we're gonna move on to our next step now. And we're gonna grab our cabbage and we're gonna add our cabbage to our pot here. You'll need a fairly good sized pot when you're cooking this because of how the cabbage is, but it will cook down as soon as it starts getting a little bit of warmth added into that cabbage. So just kind of give this a little bit of a stir through. And I'm gonna cook this for about 5 minutes before I add all my other ingredients in, just to kind of sweat this down just a little bit. And again, my heat's still on medium. And I'll be back and we'll show you what this looks like in a few minutes. I am back and you can see here by my cabbage that it's cooked down to about half where it was earlier. So it's going to continue to cook down a little bit more. But just make sure you've got a big enough pot that when you add that in, you won't have it overflowing on the sides or the top of it. So now that this is cooked down for about 5 minutes, let's go ahead and add our other ingredients. So I have 1 tablespoon of rice wine vinegar, we'll add that in. I've got 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, we'll add that in. And for a little bit of sweetness, I've got 1 tablespoon of brown sugar here. If you want to use regular sugar, you can. If you want to use maple syrup, you can definitely do that. Agave syrup, you can do that if you're trying to keep everything vegan. What you want to look for, because the apple that I used is a Granny Smith, a little bit on the tart side. You can definitely, if you're using a sweeter apple, you might not want to put this in, this is optional, or you could add more into it depending on how sweet you like it. So this is just the basics of where it is. So we're going to go ahead and add that 1 tablespoon of that brown sugar in and get that mixed through a little bit. And then lastly, I've got a 1/2 cup of water and we'll add that in. Now that we've got all of our other ingredients in here, let's just give that a good mix through. And what we want to do now is bring this up to a boil, and then I'm going to put the lid on it, and we want to cook this now between 20-25 minutes. Depending on how thick you sliced your cabbage, it could take a little bit longer. If you cut your cabbage a little bit thinner using the little attachment on your food processor, you might not have to cook it as long. So I'm going to start with about 20 minutes on this. I'm going to put this down on low. I'm going to put the lid on it, and we'll cook this down until the cabbage gets tender, and we'll be back and I'll show you what this looks like. All right, I am back and it's been 20 minutes. I wanted to show you what my cabbage looked like, and we're going to give this a taste because I'm going to add salt and pepper to taste at this point. And because different people have different tastes, you might like yours with a little bit more crunch in it, so you might not want to cook it as long, or you might like your cabbage cooked a lot more where it's really soft. So I like mine on the crunchy side a little bit. So this has been in here for 20 minutes. So let's give this a taste and see where we are with our seasoning. I'm just going to pull one of these pieces of cabbage out, and I've got me a fork here, and I'm going to taste to see where we are with our seasoning. That is really delicious. It's not going to take much, I can tell you right now, with my seasoning. So I'm just going to give it a couple of pinches of salt and a pinch of black pepper. And I'm going to give this a stir through. The smell of this is absolutely incredible. I know I said that earlier, but now that it's cooked a lot more, it definitely has a really nice aroma to it. So let's get out a couple of pieces of this. I'm going to give this a try and see where we're at with it. I've got me another fork here, clean one. All right, let's give this a taste and see how this is. That is delicious. You can taste that little bit of that vinegar behind in it. And I did get a piece of the apple in there that was really nice. That cabbage has a nice crunch to it where I really like it. Like I say, you can really cook this to the length that you like it in. So this has been cooking for 20 minutes. And you saw the size pieces that I had in mind. If you make it a little bit bigger pieces, it might take a little bit longer. And again, if you like it cooked a little bit softer, you can definitely cook it a little bit longer than I did. So I hope this has inspired you to try the braised cabbage and apples. And if it has, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And check out one of these other 2 videos over here. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear from you on if you've made this before. If you do anything different, I'd love to hear from you. And if you've never made it before and you try this recipe, let me know how yours turned out. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.